Hey guys, welcome to part one of a three-part series where I'm going to be exploring and ranking from best to worst the DisneyToon Studios films. Now, if you remember back to the beginning of this year, I explored the Disney library of films that were released theatrically and looked at their respective eras and ranked them best to worst here on the channel. And those have become some of the most popular videos here on this channel, and I really enjoyed doing that. And so I thought, why not look at the DisneyToon Studios films, because this is a very interesting era for the Disney company and the Disney brand, and I thought that it would just be a lot of fun to look at this era that people tend to forget about or that people want to forget about. DisneyToon Studios was created back in 1990 and was defunct in 2018, and it is their 30th anniversary this year, and I thought this would be the perfect time to actually do this. And during that time, they released 47 films that were either theatrically released or sent directly to video. In fact, this studio is, if you don't know, known for making the direct-to-video sequels as well as making spin-offs to the Winnie the Pooh series, making movies such as a Goofy movie, as well as making the Tinker Bell films and the Plane films. So this is a very compact and very interesting era that has a lot of things going on for it, and I want to explore all those films here today and in the coming weeks. And since there are 47 films, I think it is best to split this series into 3 separate videos. So today we will be looking at 16 of those films. So anyway, let's not waste any more time and get this list started. And at number 47, we have Mulan II, which is one of the worst animated films I have ever seen. I just absolutely cannot stand this film. From the way it treats its characters to the way it continues the story. Now, if you guys remember back, I absolutely love Mulan, and in fact, a lot of people really do. And just to see what this sequel does to these characters is just really appalling, and it's just very childlike, and I just do not like this film one bit. It is extremely annoying with annoying characters and really annoying songs that are not funny. The characters just feel so out of place in this story, and I can't stand it. At number 46, we have The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, which a lot of people might put as their worst film on this list. But I like it just a tad more than Mulan 2. For one, I think that the story overall has a good message, but the film overall is just not very good. Who thought that making a sequel to Hunchback of Notre Dame was a good idea? If you guys remember, Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of my favorite animated films of all time, and seeing the sequel being so childish as well as just extremely awkward and unnecessary, it just breaks my heart. The character work is absolutely atrocious. The animation is not very good, and it's made by the people that made Batman the Animated Series, which is a great, beautifully animated show, but it just doesn't work for the Disney style of Hunchback at all. This film is just very childish. I don't like it. I don't like talking about it, so we're gonna move forward. Coming in at number 45, we have The Fox and the Hound 2. Who thought that this was a good idea? The Fox and the Hound 2 is a film that just should not exist. It's a midquel that takes place in between the events of the first film, which I think is a actually good area to make a sequel, because you can have a lot of character growth in between the time where they become, children to the point where they become adults. And I thought that would be a very interesting time period. However, they make it a story where they join a band and it's really awkward and childish, and it's not The Fox and the Hound, and it feels completely jarring to what is in that first film, which is a very darker, realistic Disney film, and to see it done with such childishness is just absolutely appalling to me. I really do not like this film at all. There's not much I could say that's good about it. I could just say that it's better animated than the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it's not as annoying as Mulan 2, but overall, this is a film that you should definitely skip. Hold on, I'm gonna have to lift this up to really remember this title. At number 44, we have Disney Princess Enchanted Tales Follow Your Dreams. Now, a lot of people might not know exactly what this film is, and I didn't even know this film existed until I started doing these movies. And basically what it is, it's a pilot for what would probably be an eventual TV series where we look at the Disney princesses as they go on different adventures and learn lessons. And I think this is actually something that has potential, that is overall a good idea, but it's just extremely dull and boring and just not that entertaining at all, with really terrible songs. The only thing that I really liked about it was seeing Princess Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. I actually really liked seeing that animation style return and seeing those characters return. It was almost like seeing a Sleeping Beauty sequel, but sadly it's just poorly animated in, that cheap quality way, as well as just not being very interesting. It's not the worst thing ever, but it's not good. Coming in at number 43, we have Belle's Magical World, which is a film that is extremely cheap, extremely boring, and if you guys don't know, this was basically the pilot for what would eventually be a Beauty and the Beast series set between the events of the film, where Belle is in Beast's castle and learns to love him during the winter, and this is just not very good, and I can see why they didn't turn this into an eventual series like they did with a bunch of other Disney properties. This film is extremely boring. It is basically 3 episodes combined together, which doesn't really work for pacing issues, and it's just extremely dull. It's not that good to look at. The animation, especially for other Disney TV shows that were coming out at the time, the animation is really not that good or that impressive. I didn't like this film at all, but it is a lot better than the previous films I've talked about. It's just really bland. At number 42, we have Atlantis, Milo's Return, which is yet again another pilot for an eventual TV series that was eventually canceled due to the fact that Atlantis didn't do well at the box office. Now, this actually has potential, and I actually would have really liked if this was a series. That said, as a film, putting 3 episodes together, yet again, it just doesn't work for the pacing at all, and it's just very boring and dull because of it. I do think that the stories are interesting, and I like seeing these characters again, but I think having a TV series and seeing this in a more shorter form of, 20 some episodes at 22 minutes, I think that would have been much better, but as it stands, this is sadly just not very good. At number 41, we have Pocahontas 2, Journey to a New World. Now, you guys know that I do not really care for the original Pocahontas, but I had some hope for this film because, I wanted to go in liking all these films, but I just couldn't. Pocahontas 2, though, does have some good moments. The animation is actually really good, and I like the idea that Pocahontas is journeying over to England, which is something that is historically accurate, except for, the film's not historically accurate. But the attempt is there to continue the story of Pocahontas with some historical backing. However, the film is just extremely juvenile. The songs aren't that memorable, but the animation is really good, and the voice work is still top-notch. But it's just very disposable and extremely forgettable. I don't know if it's better than Pocahontas or if it's not, but it's still overall not that impressive of a film. At number 40, we have the very first DisneyToon Studios film that was a direct-to-video sequel, and that is The Return of Jafar. This film is extremely boring and dull, and I didn't care for it at all, really. It does have some funny moments with the character that gets a hold of Jafar's lamp. I think I really like him, played by Jason Alexander. He's a lot of fun. I do like seeing Jafar returning, but it's just overall an extremely dull film that isn't that entertaining and just follows some beats that we've seen before. I do like the idea, and I think it was basically the best idea for a sequel to Aladdin, but it's just not that entertaining at all. It's very cheaply animated. In fact, it's probably the cheapest animation out of the whole lot of these films, but overall, just not that entertaining. I know there's some people that would definitely rank this a little bit higher, but I just couldn't get into this film. I was extremely bored. At number 39, we have Planes, which is the spin-off of the Cars series. And this film is not as bad as people say it is. It has some things going for it. The animation, for the most part, is extremely well done, especially for this studio, which is doing with, more cheaper animation. But the animation is really good. However, the problem with this film is that it's a by-the-numbers story that we feel has been seen before, many times before, and it's just kind of like a do-over of the Cars formula, and that's really basic, when even the first Cars movie was pretty basic when it came to its plot, and this one is even more so. I didn't laugh that much in the film, but it's not the worst thing that people seem to make it out to be, but overall, it's not that good of a film either. At number 38, we have The Little Mermaid 2: Return to the Sea, which is a film that I think is extremely interesting if they made it interesting. I do like the idea of it focusing on Ariel's daughter and how she's basically confined to this castle and that she wants to explore the sea. And I think that it's a nice little switch that whereas the first film was about Ariel becoming a human, this is about her daughter becoming a mermaid. But overall, the film is just very dull to look at. Characters just aren't that great. And the villain is extremely disappointing, being Ursula's sister. She's basically just Ursula Light, and that was very disappointing. This film isn't that bad, but it's just extremely dull, and that's what makes it just not as watchable as other films on this list. At number 37, we have Cinderella 2: Dreams Come True, which is a very interesting sequel as it tells 3 distinct stories of Cinderella that take place after the events of the first film and how she got into her role of being a princess. And I thought that this had potential of being very interesting. However, 2 of the 3 stories are pretty extremely dull and extremely annoying. One dealing with her first day in the castle, which is frustratingly annoying, as well as one that deals with the mice, which I just didn't find that entertaining. However, it does have a bright spot in the 3rd story that focuses on Anastasia trying to get her own happily ever after, and I thought that was extremely heartwarming and very entertaining nonetheless. However, if you watch the 3rd film in this series, you'll know that they completely retcon this film out of existence for the most part, and so the events of this film don't really matter, and her happily ever after, Anastasia's, doesn't really matter at all, which is really disappointing because I do like that segment. But overall, this film is really close to being a good film. However, it just has 2 out of the 3 stories that just aren't that entertaining. At number 36, we have Kronk's New Groove, which I was actually really looking forward to because I love the Emperor's New Groove, and I love the character of Kronk. However, I just don't think that he can be the main character of a full-length film, and this film really showed that. One thing I don't really care about this film is that it really is disjointed in its storytelling, really focusing on 3 different storylines that just feel kind of random and don't really fit together as a cohesive whole. I think that the first story is really funny with characters such as Yzma and Cusco returning. I thought that stuff was actually really fun. And I did like the stuff at the ending with Kronk's father and how he wants to please him. However, I just found this film extremely boring, and the comedy just not as good or as fresh as that first film. It does have some funny moments throughout, but I just found it really forgettable. At number 35, we have Winnie the Pooh Seasons of Giving, which is a film that feels extremely cheap, and it really is. Basically, it's just a combination of episodes from the TV series as well as a short film put together with some music that is not that good at all. And it has some good moments, basically episodes from the TV series, but I'm seeing them again packaged together in this, and it just doesn't work as well. It does have some good moments because of those episodes that I really like Find Her Keeper, which is absolutely phenomenal, but overall, it just feels extremely bland. I don't know why they made this. It feels extremely cheap, and it's definitely the worst of the Winnie the Pooh films. And at number 34, we have yet another Pooh film, Pooh's Heffalump Halloween movie, which just isn't that great of a film, but I can't say that I enjoyed myself nonetheless with a few things in it. I do really like seeing Roo and Lumpy together. I really think that those two characters really work well together. However, the film just really isn't that entertaining when it comes to their storyline. The best storyline in this film actually has to do with a flashback of how Piglet learned to be brave. And I think it's actually taken from an episode of The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which is yet again another reason why was this film even made if it just recycles things that we've already seen into a packaged film. Both these films really aren't that bad. They just have moments that they recycle, and that's the worst part about them. At number 33, we have Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, which might be pretty low for some people, but I do really like this film. In fact, from this point on, I do really like a lot of these films. But this film in particular, especially compared to the first one, which we'll get to much later, just feels rather cheap and feels by the numbers, and it feels like something we've seen before. It's got some really good storylines in this, but I've seen it better done in the first film. The animation also is very interesting. It is CGI. In fact, this is one of the first CGI films that I think Disney ever did, especially it's the first CGI film that this studio in particular did. But it's very cool to see these characters brought to life in CGI. However, I just think that the stories are much weaker than the previous films, and there's definitely more of them. But overall, I think this is still a very likable film. It's definitely a film that I like revisiting every Christmas, and overall, it's not bad at all. It's just pretty average in my opinion. And number 32, which is the last film we're going to be talking about today, is Brother Bear 2, the sequel to Brother Bear, of course. And this film, I didn't really like as I was watching it, but as I kept watching it, I really started to enjoy it much more. However, I just don't think it's as good as that first film, which is a film that I think is very, very underrated. But this film does have some moments. I think the animation, for the most part, is really good. And the ending of this film, in particular, is a great and awesome climax with so much emotion, great character work, and really good animation, as I said. And it feels like it is in tone with that first film's ending, because both films, I think, have extremely good endings. I do like the story overall and how Kenai falls in love with this girl that he was friends with as a child. And I also like Kenai's struggle as he deals with maybe he wants to be human again. And I think that's a great little struggle for this film. It does have some moments that are kind of just not that good. I really don't like the character of Coda that much. I think he's extremely annoying. The comedy is hit or miss in this film, but overall, I think it still has a lot of genuine heart in it. I think the story overall is pretty solid. It's just not as good as that first film. And that concludes part one of my three-part ranking of the DisneyToon Studios films. But anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next review.